Welcome to the Beyond Electric Sheep podcast. I'm Rick Thompson.
And I'm Ed Daniels.
Ed, for this episode, I wanted to revisit something we've talked about before, which is you were rewriting a book you wrote several years ago called The Last of the Firefighters. And I'll let you intro what it's about. You're getting ready to publish it, and you use AI to help you write quite a bit, although it sounds like there were certain points where you sort of rebelled against that. It just wasn't doing a good enough job, or your ego said, get out of the way, let me do this.
Right.
You know, we all read stuff. I get newsletters, all kinds. Sometimes I get some that are obviously AI generated and not worth reading. I don't mind if someone uses AI to write stuff, if it's useful and they've added something useful for me to read or entertaining. But there's a lot of schlock out there. You've learned a lot in this process. We talked about it, as I said before, in an earlier episode. I just thought we'd revisit and see, what have you learned? What could you pass on to other people that use AI for writing?
Yeah, it's been a really educational process, that's for sure. So the book has progressed along. I wrote this book 10 years ago. It was about automation, and it's sort of a metaphor for the whole of society and about how firefighting, and I used to be a firefighter, could be automated essentially, and the role of the actual human firefighters might be reduced. And so I thought about that 10 years ago, but in a way I was before my time, because now with AI and robotics and especially the upcoming advent of humanoid robotics, the world really is going to change. So this is a mock-up cover of the book, and as you can see, we got the firefighter and his love interest and then the robot. And so anyway, it's going to be I think the book is way better than it was 10 years ago, and the world is much more – it's going to be very much more relevant than it was.
It's obvious this is happening.
Yeah.
10 years ago, it seemed like, that'll probably happen. Now it's okay.
Now
this is just happening.
It's going to happen. But this is kind of about the human element of that. How does this guy, this firefighter, the protagonist, react to the fact that his beloved profession is changing so dramatically, and what happens to him, and how did his wife, who happens to be a robot, an AI scientist and developer, how does she play into the whole thing? So, anyways, I think it'll be interesting and very relevant. But so I started out, and this is a little bit of a repeat of what we talked about before, but just a quick summary. I started out saying, hey, why can't I just tell GPT-4 or 3.5 that here's my book, just take a look at the whole book, and I want to make these changes to it. I want to change it in this way. Please go ahead, make the edits, and just tell me what you did, and then I'll come back and review it. Well, that was a spectacular failure. No way did that work. So I refined it. I ended up going on a chapter-by-chapter basis. I moved over and started using Claude more than ChatGPT, and still it helped me, but it ended up more of the AI being an advisor, but I had my own ideas about how I wanted to do this. And so I have a feeling that even if it was the best human editor in the whole world, I still might not take all of that editor's advice or recommendations, because I've got the way that I want to do it. I'm a little bit sort of strong-minded in these types of things, writing. So it ended up being a great co-writer, assistant, reviewer, somebody to look at like each chapter and tell me if I messed up and created a character before I really introduced that character. I introduced a character. So, as a quality assurance checker, a creative assistant, to help me look at whether this technology really makes sense or not. So anyway, that's where I found the tool really helped me with this book and continues to help me, not to mention the actual generation of the cover image. I had to pay an artist to do that.
Sure.
Now I was able to do it with Midjourney.
So it sounds like rather than actually creating content, you're using it to do quality control. It's make sure your continuity is good. You don't do, there's that person on TV shows that runs around with a notebook to make sure that all the things are in the right place when they set the shot back up again. And make sure, as you said, you've introduced the character. Right. You could probably ask it, is there something that doesn't make sense here? If I'd done some weird
and I do that, right. I say, is this, given this future time frame, would this new technology be reasonable?
Yes, and then just being an editor. I mean, I wrote a book, The Dashboard Effect, years ago with my brother, and I read the thing, 20 times.
Yeah.
I can think of all the airplane flights where I sat down and read it again and looked for typos, and then we finally published it, and there were still typos in it.
It's irritating, you're right. Yeah. I think, it's really good at that. It's really good at that. But in terms of handing it over, here's my concept, do it, it immediately would go off track. I'd even say, here's this chapter, review this chapter. Okay, now let's move into the next chapter. And I actually gave it the text for the next chapter, but it ended up hallucinating like 50% of that chapter. It's just completely made up when that was not what I was looking for. So
I wonder if that's context window size issues or what. So if you were advising someone who's writing, it sounds like you would say, don't expect it to give you the content. I mean, maybe I've used it to write outlines. Yeah. That's been quite useful for me.
I think it's
rough drafts.
Just every step of the way, it's hugely valuable, but handing over the whole job is not valuable for me. Now, I do have a friend, Joe Ferguson is his name, and he wrote a science fiction book. And just to plug that, and I'll put the link also in the at the end of this video.
Show notes.
But yeah, it's called The Age of Logos, and it's a science fiction novel. And he wrote this by hooking up his iPhone to his AirPods, and he runs every day for, let's just say an hour. I don't know exactly how long he runs, but he talked to ChatGPT for the entire time period of his run, and basically developed these chapters as he goes. And then he had a workflow where he would have it read back to him the chapter, and then he would make edits on the fly by using the advanced voice mode.
Oh, he was using advanced voice mode for that. That's
cool.
So,
I may also not reflect the absolute state of the art and how to do this. And in this case, this is a science fiction novel about, really the future where AI essentially takes over the solar system, builds a Dyson sphere, and all this type of thing, for those of you who know what that is. Yeah. Right. But it actually did a really good job with him. So, there may be ways to take better advantage of it.
I'm sure. I mean, I've heard, I haven't checked specifically, but I've heard there are lots of books on Amazon that are completely AI written. I don't know what completely means. It seems like you still need a person to be doing some kind of quality checking and make sure it's good, but maybe not. Maybe people are just producing total schlock and selling it.
Well, I should just point out that the AI detectors, where you try to build an algorithm or use your own LLM to detect if certain text or whole books are written by AI, have been pretty spectacular failures. It's hard to detect what's written by AI versus what's written by either a great or probably more likely not so great author.
Yeah, interesting. It's a little bit of a tangent, but it makes me think of that tool, Notebook LM, that Google's got, that you can give it some context, and then it'll create a podcast for you, like we're doing here.
Yes.
And nothing against us, but their presenters are probably better than us. They have better voices.
Let's just say to our audience, if you haven't tried Notebook LM, get to it and do it, because it is an amazing tool.
I've uploaded a PDF of a book and had it do a podcast, and it's really good.
Right.
So it's interesting. I find that entertaining, and I learn. It's a good way to learn. It's completely AI generated, but from some source material that wasn't necessarily AI produced. Anyway, going to be some interesting times ahead.
I think so. And, I would say to people, I think it's valuable for authors to disclose that they used AI in the generation of a book. maybe it's a curiosity, but it's interesting. But, I think ultimately it's going to actually improve the level of writing.
I think it might. We'll see. I mean, that's going to happen in filmmaking too, right? You're still going to want someone who's got the eye and got the storytelling ability. I mean, I guess the AIs could get there. I don't know. We'll see.
Yep.
All right. Good topic. Thank you.
Thank you.